Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the live lecture of functional analysis. In the last lecture, we have started proving the theorem which gives us the isometric isomorphism between the spaces n to n double star. Okay. For this, we wanted to prove a theorem. Actually, for any nonlinear space n, we wanted to prove that for every vector x in n induces a functional fx on n star. Fx on n star is equivalent to say fx in n double star, which is defined by this f of fx of small f is f of x for all f in n star, such that norm of fx is equal to norm of x. And further, we wanted to prove that the mapping j from n into n double star defined by jx equal to fx is isometric isomorphism of n into n double star. Therefore, two steps to prove I now. In the first step, we will prove that capital Fx is a functional on n star. In order to prove this to be a functional, we wanted to prove this to be linear and bounded. And herewith we have started the proof. In order to prove the functional Fx defined on n star to k is linear, we will start with two functionals f and g in n star and alpha beta be any scalars. And let us just operate it. Then how can we define this? Fx operated on alpha f plus beta g is alpha f plus beta g operated on x. Now, can anyone tell me how this function alpha f plus beta g is operated on x? Is it a pointwise operation? Correct? No.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in the pointwise operation, can I write this as alpha into f of x plus beta into g of x? But again, this f of x I can write as fx operated on small f. Similarly, beta into fx operated on g functional. Correct? Therefore, this implies the function capital Fx is linear. Is it okay? Function capital Fx is linear. Now, in order to prove this functional is bounded, I will consider the mod. Why modulus I am considering instead of norm? Because whenever we wanted to show any transformation is bounded, we wanted to show the inequality of this type. No, norm p of x is less than or equals to k into norm of x. This is what is expected to prove. But if you look at the domain, fx is if fx is operated on any small f, this number will belongs to k. K is either real field or complex field. Therefore, instead of considering norm, I can start with modulus. Therefore, what I am going to consider here, consider for any f in n star, for any arbitrary point in the arbitrary functional in the domain. Correct? What I am going to consider modulus of, yes, modulus of capital Fx operated on f. Capital Fx operated on f. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Try to understand why I am not considering norm. It is modulus. But what the definition says that this is mod of f of x. But what is one more fact we know about f? F is a functional, no? F is in n star. If f is in n star, what is the meaning? F is linear and bounded. F is linear and bounded. Therefore, can I write this as norm f into norm of x? Reason here I will write f is functional and hence bounded, right? F is functional and hence it is bounded as well. Therefore, this is less equal, sorry. Mod f of x is less equal by norm f into norm of x. Now here, x I will keep fixed. Considering this norm x to be a fixed constant, can I say the inequality gives us fx is bounded? This is
Yes,
fixed.
ma'am.
Fx is operated on f. No? This kind of inequality we have obtained. See, t is operated on x. T is operated on x. Therefore, it's not into some fixed scalar. Now here fx is operated on f. Therefore, norm f we have. Therefore, let me put this as a fixed scalar. I will keep this as fixed scalar, some constant. Therefore, may I say this kind of inequality is true? Okay, therefore one can say that the function fx is bounded. Therefore, here I will write taking norm x as fixed constant. Okay, may I say this gives us fx is bounded. Okay, hence fx is a functional because both properties we have verified, linearity and boundedness. Therefore, fx is a functional defined on n star. First point we have proved. That is, for every x in n, we have shown that there exists a functional fx on n star, that is in n double star. What is the second point asked us to prove? Norm fx is equal to norm of x. Let me do it as a second step. In step 2, our claim is to prove norm fx is equal to norm of x. To prove the equality, no doubt we have to prove the inequalities, two inequalities going in opposite direction. Therefore, let me start with the definition of operator norm for the functional fx first. Yes, supremum definition of operator norm. Is it mod of fx operated on f such that f is in n star and norm of f is less than or equals to 1. Okay, this is by definition of operator norm. By definition of operator norm. Okay, now I'll just keep the inequality we have proved here. I think nowhere I have given a number. Yeah, therefore shall I give this as statement number 1. And let us just make use of this statement number 1 to replace this mod of fx upon f. Therefore, with inequality node of this is norm of f into norm of x such that f is in n star and norm f is less than or equals to. Let us put this norm f less than or equals to 1 here. Therefore, what can I get? If this suprema is found over the functional f where norm f less than or equals to 1, therefore let me just substitute. Therefore, may I get here the term will be norm x only and supremum
Yes,
norm,
ma'am.
there is only one term we have. Therefore, this inequality was proved. Norm fx is less than or equals to norm of x, and let me call this as inequality number 2. Now, to prove the reverse part of the inequality, we were going to make use of the consequence, Hanbana consequence number 1, which we have proved already. So, let me just try to prove reverse inequality. To prove reverse inequality, we use Hanbana theorem consequence number 1. Consequence number 1. Okay. Let x be any non-zero vector in n. Do you just remember the consequence? Let me just show you the consequence first. Actually, this is about the existence of a functional f, na? Such that, here it is, this is consequence 2. Yes, this is the consequence number 1. What it was told us, x not be any non-zero vector, and for this vector, with the help of this vector, we have proved there exists a functional capital F in n star such that these two statements holds. That is, f of x naught is norm of x naught and norm of f is equals to 1. So let me just use the consequence, and for that, I will start with a non-zero vector x in n. Okay, therefore here we were starting with a non-zero vector x in n. Then by using consequence, what can I say? A functional exists, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Using the consequence, there exists a functional small f is the symbol I will use because small f is the notation we have used for the functionals on n. Therefore, here instead of capital F, I will use the symbol small f. There exists a functional small f in n star such that what are the two properties? F of x is norm of x and norm f is equal to 1. Correct, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, in the consequence itself, for x naught not equals to 0, there exists a functional f in n star such that capital F of x naught is defined as norm of x naught and norm of capital F is equals to 1. Only the change of symbols. Instead of a vector x naught, here we are writing x. Instead of a functional capital F, we were writing small. All the rest we have used same. Okay. Now let me consider the Suprema definition again. Consider that Suprema definition for operator norm. What is norm fx according to the definition? Supremum mod of fx of here. Capital Fx operated on small f such that I will use a second definition. Norm not equal to 1. Okay. This is mod. How this fx of f is defined? Is it mod fx? Such that norm f is equal to 1. Correct now? Let me call it as statement number 4. Now from 3, let me just start. What we have in 3, norm x is equal to. Can I take modulus on both the sides? Norm is always a non-negative quantity. Therefore, writing a mod or not is equivalent. We're just taking the modulus here. And now can I write a relation between simply mod of x and supremum? What will be a relation? Supremum mod of x. Provided norm f is equal to 1. Supremum over this say an arbitrary mod of x. What will be
Less
obvious?
equal.
It is less equal. You can observe the relation here is norm x on the left is less equal by. What is the definition on the right says? Correct, no? This is from 4. This right hand is the definition of norm of x. Okay, so let me call this as statement number 5. Then what is the inequality previously 2, na? From 2 and 5, can I write norm of fx is equal to norm of x. Hence, we have the proof of equality. Now we will go for the last step, proving J is an isometric isomorphism. Step 3, to prove that J is an isometric isomorphism. How many conditions to verify?
3. 1 linear and distance mostly.
Yes. Isomorphism of n into n double star. Okay, so first let us go for linearity. Let us write the definition first. The function j is defined from n into n double star definable. Yes, how it is defined? Jx, no? J operated on x is fx simply, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Check out the statement. J operated on x is fx for every x in n. For every x in n. Now, if I wanted to prove the linearity, what we were considering generally a linear combination of the vectors. Now, therefore, if I consider directly say j of alpha x plus beta y, what the definition will give me? F and its a suffix is alpha x plus beta y, which we wanted to show actually alpha fx plus beta fy right now. Okay, so if it is not possible directly if you write, what we will do, we will prove linearity in two different senses. Once with respect to addition and once with respect to scalar multiplication. Suppose I take with respect to addition, the term will be g of x plus y, which is fx plus y, na? But the question is, how can I go further? If I wanted to check whether fx plus y is fx plus fy, what I have to do? I have to operate this fx plus y on some functional. Correct now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Therefore, what we will do? We will consider the linearity for any xy in n alpha scalar consider. What I'm going to consider j of x plus y. According to the definition, this is fx plus y. We cannot go further unless we operate this functional on some functional in n star. Right now, therefore here we will consider what we will consider f x plus y. We will try to operate it on one functional in n star. Then what the definition says that
f of
fx
x
of,
plus y.
yes, it is f of x plus y. Reason by definition of capital f x. Now how this small f is operated on x plus y?
F of x plus f of y.
Reason f
F
is
is functional.
linear, functional or linear. We consider for, I will write for f in n star. Now what is fx? This gives us fx and fy. Can I write this as fx operated on f added with fy operated on f. Again, as it is a pointwise operation, can I write it together as fx plus fy operated on f. Now since f is arbitrary, since f in n star is arbitrary. Now what can we have? We have the equality of their functionals. Therefore, what we have proved? Fx plus y is fx plus fy. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, similarly, can I go for scalar multiplication? F alpha x operated on f. Definition says that this is f of alpha x, which is alpha fx, which is alpha fx operated on f, which we can write as alpha fx operated on f. Correct, no? If you have any difficulty, you can ask me. Again, since f in n star is arbitrary, actually we are very lagging behind in the syllabus. This was expected to be completed in the previous lecture itself. Due to some connectivity issue, we could not complete. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, let us come back again with considering j of x plus y. Correct, na? Thus, we have j operated on x plus y is f x plus y. But what we have proved fx plus y is fx plus fy. Numbering not given, I think. What are the numbers? Up to 5 we have used. Let me call this b6 and let this be 7. And here which number we have used? 6 numbers. Correct? But fx plus fy is nothing but jx plus jy. Correct, na? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Or you can write j operated on x. That is better. Okay. And let me consider the scalar multiplication as well. J alpha x is f alpha x, right? Which we were writing alpha fx, which is alpha into j of x. Reason from 7. Therefore, looking at this, the mapping J satisfies linearity with respect to addition and scalar multiplication as well. Therefore, we can say this J is linear. 1 point we have proved. Okay. 1 point we have proved. What about 1 property of J? J is 1 obviously. If I wanted to show J is 1 how can I show?
G of x equal to G of y implies x equal to y.
Let me just prove it. Here with this I can prove. Jx, no need to write in the main proof. Jx equals to jy, which gives you fx equals to fy. Right now, when you are going to write this, these two functions are equal means operated on some vector, it gives you the same values, right now. Okay. What it is giving us, is it fx equal to fy?
Yes, ma'am.
fx equals to fy, which gives you x is equals to y. If j is 1 1, obviously you can write. Okay, linearity we have proved. Let me go for isometry also. What is also isometry we want us to show? Norm of jx equal to norm of x is the aim to show. But norm of jx is norm fx as per the definition, and this is equal to norm of x. Reason is step 2 we have proved, no? Norm of x is equals to norm of x. Therefore, here I can say j is preserving or non-preserving. Therefore, may I say all the conditions get satisfied? Linearity means it is homomorphism 1 1. These two conditions together gives you isomorphism added with isometry. Therefore, may I say this is isometric isomorphism. Thus the mapping J is an isometric isomorphism of n into n double star. Okay, hence the proof of the theorem. If you have any difficulty about the proof, you can ask. Hmm? I just wanted to write one remark about Hello students, येतोय का आवाज? Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Due to some internet issue, I left the meeting. Shall we continue? Some 10-15 minutes we have with us.
Yes, ma'am.
The next theorem which we were going to discuss is about open mapping theorem. Okay. Do you have any idea about what is an open mapping? When you say that a mapping itself is open, function is an open function. Okay. It's
When the
actually
open sets in
huh,
domain is mapped to open sets in codomain.
very good, very good. When an open set is mapped to open sets, it is called as the open mapping, open function. Correct. Now here today we were going to find out the criteria for when your function will be open mapping. When the function will be an open mapping under the heading of open mapping theorem. This open mapping theorem. Okay. So first I will write the definition for the open mapping. What the definition is, they say that a continuous linear transformation, T of a norm linear space N into a norm linear space N dash is said to be open, if for every open set G, in N, comma, Pg is open in, yes, open in which set?
N dash.
Yes, it is open in N dash. Okay. Therefore, the criteria for the mapping to be open, this mapping continuous linear transformation will be an open mapping. Instead of these non-linear spaces as the domain and codomain, if we take the Banach spaces, then the continuous linear transformation is an open mapping always. Therefore, what is the condition? Your domain codomain are Banach spaces and T is continuous linear transformation of B onto B dash, then this will be an open mapping. Before going to the main theorem, we wanted to prove some two lemmas which are useful for proving the main theorem. Therefore, here I will write lemma number 1 for the proof of open mapping theorem. This lemma is about shifting or translation property, right? Suppose we have some sphere in a 2-dimensional space or in a 3-dimensional space. How can we shift it? A translation function we have studied, no?
Yes,
Correct?
ma'am.
How can we translate or shift an object in a 2-dimensional space or in a 3-dimensional space? Yes? How can you shift? How can you translate? Translation function you have to recall simply, na? Okay, look at this lemma. Let SXR be an open sphere in a Banach space B with, yes, center at X and radius R. Okay, and SR be an open sphere. SR is the symbol we were using for open sphere centered at origin. SR is the open sphere centered at origin and radius R. Okay, then prove that. What is it asked us to prove? 2 points it is asked us to prove. In the first point, we were going to show SXR is x plus s of 0 comma r or x plus sr. Okay, SXR is x plus s of 0 r, that is x plus sr, or sr I can prove is r into s1, or I can write s of 0 r is r times s of 0 1. You must try to understand the meaning of this lemma first, then only we will go for proving it. Okay. SXR is x plus S of 0R. What is the meaning? Two-dimensional space I will take initially, so that it will be easier for us.
Sphere. Sphere at origin is translated by r distance.
Very good. Now, R distance or
X.
X distance. But this is a sphere at origin with some radius, say. Okay, and if x is a vector we were going to add, this will be its new position. This will be the new position. Okay, this is S of 0, r. Radius we will assume same. Both the spheres have radius r, say, but the change is in center. Okay, how these vectors are added? X vector is added to the sphere x. How this vector is added? Suppose here is a vector, there is one point on the sphere, and if a vector x is added, it will take a new position, right? If x is a vector added to the origin, it will take this position, right? If a vector x is added at this point, it will take new position, right? No, means this sphere is just translated from old position to new position by addition of this vector x, by addition of this vector x, and whatever is this new position, this is actually a sphere with same radius, only the change will be in the origin. Instead of the origin to be instead of the origin as 0, we will have the instead of center to be origin, it will be having the center as x vector. Understood? First one, SXR is x plus S of 0R. Okay. Now what the second try to tell us? Second one, SR is RS1.
Unit sphere.
Yes, means if you have some sphere with radius r centered at
Magnification,
origin.
ma'am.
Right. This is say r. Okay. This is say r. Therefore, this is the sphere centered at origin with radius r, which is r times, this sphere. What is this sphere? Centered at origin, radius 1. Let me draw again that sphere. Now let me say, this is my center having unit radius. This is the sphere with center at origin radius 1. Okay. So whatever is this new sphere we have, this new sphere is r times this sphere with radius unity. Or if you want to draw in, now as we are in the two-dimensional spaces, you can draw r such spheres in this S of 0R. Correct, no? Some small spheres, small unit spheres. How many such can be drawn? R such a sphere. Means r times S of 01 is S of 0R. That is what the lemma wanted to tell us. Understood the meaning of both?
Yes.
Let us prove it. Proving this is very easy actually. Okay, we will first prove that S of XR is x plus S of 0R. This is what we will try to prove. Let me just define what is the sphere means, S of XR. S of XR is collection of all those points in the non-linear space N which are at a distance less than or equals strictly less than R, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Why strictly less? Because we were considering open sphere. If I enclose the boundary, then here it will be less equal. Now we wanted to show that this sphere is contained in right side sphere. Right side sphere is still contained in this. That is, if I wanted to start with an element, say y in this, we will show the element will be in this and reverse versa, vice versa also. Okay. Now here we will what we will do? We will try to put this vector y minus x as a new vector, say z. Okay. Now let me start with one element in S of XR. We will prove that the same element is in x plus s of 0 and 0 r. Therefore, let y belongs to s of xr. What it is going to imply? Is it norm of x minus y less than r? Implies and implied by I can write. Why to prove two times the same concept? Okay. Norm of x minus y less than r. Can I write norm of y minus x less than r? Right? But y minus x we have kept it as a vector, say some z vector. Therefore, can I write norm z less than r such that z is y minus x? Okay. Then what is the concept defined on y only? May I say this is equivalent to, we have started with y, therefore I can write y from this as x plus z such that norm z less than r. Is it okay? Same statement I have just rewritten. Okay. Then y equal to x plus z, y equal to x plus z. Can I write this as norm of z minus 0 less than r? Therefore,
Yes,
may I
ma'am.
say the point z will lie in the sphere. In which sphere it will lie? S of
0 r.
0. Correct now? Now look at your element y. Y is equal to x plus z. Where z is in s of 0 r. Therefore, can I say y is in x plus s of 0 r? We have started with y is in s of x r implies and implied by y is in x plus s of 0 r. Right? Which implies the equality of the two sets. Correct now? Because y implies this will give you sxr is contained in the right side and reverse implication will tell you x plus s of 0r will be contained in s of xr, and combining both we can say both are same. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now let us do that second one. To prove that s of 0r is r times s of 0 1. Again for this I will write the definition. What will be s of 0r? Collection of all y in the nonlinear space n such that norm of y minus 0 less than r, no? That is norm y strictly less than r. Again we will consider a point in s of 0 r. Y is in s of 0 r. Okay. Which implies an implied by norm y less than r. Now this is a vector whose norm value is less than r, means this is not a unit vector. If I want to convert this to a unit vector, what I have to do?
Divided by norm.
Yes, divided by norm. Here let me just shift this r on the left. 1 by r norm of y less than 1. Okay, here we get 1 on the right side. How can I include this 1 by r in the norm? R is a radius, therefore always non-negative. Therefore, can I write it in the modulus also? Okay, let me absorb this scalar in the modulus to write norm of y by r less than 1. Okay, look at this. This is one vector we have whose norm value is less than 1. Therefore, may I say it will belong to the sphere with radius 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, let me put this as a vector z. Z is equals to y by r. But our focus is on y. Right now, our focus is on y. Therefore, may I write y is equals to rz. Now, such that norm of z minus 0 less than 1. Correct? What it allows us to write y equals to rz, comma, z is in s of 0, 1. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, I can write y belongs to r times s of 0, 1. Actually, we have started with y is in s of 0, r. Therefore, equality holds again. Therefore, s of 0, r is r times s of 0, 1. This is lemma 1, useful for us to prove the open mapping theorem. There is one more lemma which we were using to prove the main theorem. This we will write without proof. This statement we have seen already in real analysis 2, multivariable differential calculus. Do you remember this? under certain condition of non-zero Jacobian determinant, the F image of a circle contains one circle.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me just write. Let B and B dash are Banach spaces. And P is continuous linear transformation of B onto B dash. Then prove that the image of an open ball, open sphere, the image of each open sphere centered at origin in, yes, in which? In B. In B contains an open sphere centered at origin in B dash. I will try to explain you the meaning. We were not going to see the proof of this one. Okay. Suppose we have some two spaces. So this is B. Let this be B dash. Two Banach spaces we have in our hand, and T is the continuous linear mapping. Okay. Then if we have an open sphere centered at origin in B, say this. Okay. This is a centered at origin. Okay. Its image. What will be the image? The image of open sphere. If I call this sphere to be some S, say, what will be its image?
T of
Under
S.
T of S will be image, and our aim is to show that this TS contains an open ball centered at origin in B dash. Origin of B dash I will denote by say O dash. This is what the theorem wanted to show. This kind of theorem we have proved already in multivariable differential calculus. We are not going to repeat the proof here. In the next lecture, we will go for directly the open mapping theorem. Up to this, if you have any difficulty, you can ask. Both the lemmas. Lemma 1 I have given with proof, lemma 2 the statement. In the next lecture, we will go for open mapping theorem. And last point, we will start closed graph theorem. With this, Banach space will be completed, and still we have to go further for the Hilbert spaces. Okay, let me stop then. Thank you for being with me with this lecture.